All right, so welcome everyone. We are about to begin a tour of Jerusalem. Specifically, I know we've done Jerusalem as it relates to the first temple, the time of King David and before, but now we're specifically going to focus on a lot of the second temple and what surrounds the destruction that we're going to be mourning this coming Sunday on Tisha B'Av. So let's dive right into it. There's a lot of pictures, a lot of information. And believe it or not, but a lot of the information actually comes from the past 3 years even. All right, so in this picture, some of you are already experts by now. What do you see in this picture? What's unique about this picture? Well, this picture is Jerusalem as you can know it in the time of the first temple. So you can see it's a lovely city. The top of it is the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, but it's not at all the Jerusalem of the second temple, and we'll see in a second how. So in the book of Nehemiah, the pasuk says, "V'ha'ir rechavat yadayim ugdola, v'ha'am me'at betocha ve'en batim bnuim." So the city is very big, but the people in it are few, meaning there's this extended perimeter of the city with walls, but not necessarily full. So there's several walls, there's extensions, but the city is still empty. This is, if you go to the Israel Museum, this is a model, the most extensive model done of the city of Jerusalem of the time of the second temple. So why is this? Why did I just show you the first temple? Because look at this tiny part. This was the first temple of Jerusalem. It's a fraction of what you had in the time of the second temple, right? If you this is the Kotel. So if you've been to Jerusalem, you know that this is more similar to what you have today, and it's much bigger. It's a huge city. It's really a true metropolitan. And we're going to see soon that the temple, the Beit HaMikdash that was built by Herod, was the largest house of service, of worship to God in the entire ancient world. It's not just because we are Jewish that we marvel at the Beit HaMikdash. It was the largest and fanciest and most impressive that existed in the ancient world. There was nothing like it. So here's a look from the east. You can see the Beit HaMikdash and the rest of the city of Jerusalem. To your left is the city of David, and it continues from there. All right, next. Here is a map of the city. Now, it's interesting to note, important to note, especially as it relates to the actual destruction, there are several walls within the city. There's the upper city, the lower city, there's the first wall, the second wall, the third wall. There's a lot of walls going on. So even when the Romans penetrate one wall, there's always another one to be had until eventually the Romans realize that if they want to conquer the city, they have to go to the Beit HaMikdash. So as you can see, 1 is the Beit HaMikdash, 2 is the area of Har HaBayit, 3 is the first wall that surrounds the whole place. Then you have 4, the second wall, the third wall. 6 is actually very interesting. It's called the Antonia. It is the fortress that oversees the temple, and because whoever controls the Beit HaMikdash controls the city, every army wanted to make sure it had the keys, so to speak, to the old city. In the city, there's a very strong Hellenistic culture in many parts, as we know from Hanukkah, but it's actually funny. What's the last name you would expect from a family in the Jewish community? What's the last? There are some embarrassing names in Yiddish. What's the last name you would expect from a Jewish family to have? Anyone want to try and guess this? Feel free, go wild with it. The wildest name you can think of, the last name a Jewish family would choose for themselves. Well, this place in the old city of Jerusalem is called Kever Bnei Chazir, the grave of the children of Chazir, literally a pig. It's just a testimony, and you can see the writing. It's a testimony. This area, which is in Jerusalem to this day, is called Kever Bnei Chazir. and it's a testimony to some of the Hellenizations that were going on at the time in the place. This, by the way, look at the background. Look at what's behind this Hellenistic gravesite of the wealthy people of Jerusalem. Does anyone notice anything in the background? So in the background is Rechavia. Maybe you visited one of your friends. Maybe you own an apartment in Rechavia. This is in the middle of Rechavia somewhere. You have the Yason family graves, and you can see that the writings on these graves is we change between Hebrew square writing and the other kind of writing, the ancient Hebraic writing. All right. So just to let you know, there's a strong Roman influence in Jerusalem. The Bnei Chazir grave that's there to this day, and the inscription on it reads, Zeh HaKever v'Hanefesh Shel Elazar, Chaniah, Yoezer, Yehuda, Shimon, Yochanan, Bnei Yosef, Ben Oved, Yosef, Elazar, Bnei Chaniah, Kohanim, Bnei Chazir. I honestly don't know how they got that name, but it's a big site in Jerusalem, and they are even Kohanim. And you just need to understand how Hellenized a lot of the city is. I mean, we often yearn right at the center of the worship, of the center of the worship, and it has its importance. We say, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, God, return us like the days of yore. But what I hate to say that we're going to see in this talk is that the days of yore were not as glorious as one might think from a religious perspective. You have the Tzedukim are the ones who are dominating the Kehuna, the priesthood. You have a lot of Hellenization, but worse than anything, and that's ultimately what brings the downfall of Jerusalem, is the kings. The kings are thoroughly Roman. We're going to see that Hellenized Roman. We're going to see really the Hasmonean family. You know, you will not be impressed, but this is it. Here's a grave site that's around till this day. The Arabs called it for centuries Kaber el Maluk, which sounds like the graves of the Melech. These are the graves of the kings. So there's a lot of fancy graves the way you would see in the ancient world. Now, what I'm going to do now is both take you through some findings and also let you know how we got to a destruction of the temple. So after, you know, I'm not going to get into every detail, but you have the Hashmonaim take over. They have a certain autonomy from King Alexander the Great. And then there is a king called Alexander Yanai. Now, Alexander Yanai, this is probably 100, 150 BCE. Oh, no. Yeah, well, we're going to see. He's 100 BCE. He's married to a famous Shlom Tzion. Anyone here, raise your hand if you've ever been to Shlom Tzion Street in Jerusalem, some great restaurants in that area. Yeah, okay. So Shlom Tzion and Alexander Yanai are the last happy power couple that the Jewish people had as king and queen. From there on, it doesn't even go downhill. It goes off the cliff. So Alexander Yanai and Shlom Tzion have two sons. One is we're going to see his name is, I believe, Horkinus. And the other is, let me make sure I have it up here. 1 second. The other is Aristobulus. Now, they get into a fight, which happens. They get into a fight over who's going to be next king. And this is critical. One of them sends to a kingdom that didn't have so much interest in what was going on in Israel. Rome. He sends a letter to Rome and he says, listen, guys, if you help me be king, I will be your man. So this is a point the Ramban on the Torah discusses. I cannot emphasize this enough. If there's anything we should have about Tisha B'Av on a billboard, it is this. It is we who sent Rome the letter to come to us. Rome didn't show up in Jerusalem on a bright day and decide to pick on us. A Hashmonai king, Aristobulus, he is the one who goes to Rome and lobbies them to go and wage a war because his brother took the kingdom from him. That is, if there's any one takeaway point, this is it. We brought the Romans to Jerusalem. They didn't just show up. And so this fellow, Aristobulus, he makes an offer And you can see the Romans even make a coin for him. This is in the year 55 BCE. He basically, what do you see in the coin, by the way? Before I give it away, what do you see in the coin on your right? Obviously, you see the picture of the queen over there. But what do you see on the right? What's he doing? Anyone identify, or what creatures do you see there?
Is it a camel?
It looks like a camel, and he's, what's he doing?
Feeding it?
So it looks like he's feeding it, but what he's actually doing is he's offering Rome the reins. He's offering, it's extremely symbolic, he's offering them the reins, and he says, come and take over. Now, just to understand how bad this was, when Rome does show up in Jerusalem, there's a bloodbath. They killed 10,000 Jews while taking the temple. So and there isn't much recording of it, meaning Josephus or whatever others speak about it, but it's not on your radar as a Jew that in the year of 55 BCE, we basically lost independence. The end of the Second Temple really happened before it was even created, meaning the Second Temple built by Herod, because by then we lobbied the Romans to come and take over. So this is Aristobulus giving it away. And here we go to so it's between his brother Hyrcanus and Aristobulus. They both have this fight. Hyrcanus is originally the king. He's the one that comes after Alexander, Yanai, and Shlom Tzion. And his brother says, I'm not going to be king. Well, I have an idea. I can go to Rome. I mean, we speak about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa and the guy going to Rome. That was what was happening for probably a century beforehand. People going to Rome, telling the kings, please come and take my side. People did it for priesthood, for who's going to be a Kohen. You wanted to be a Kohen Gadol. You don't have now people go and lobby in Washington, D.C. Well, if you wanted to be Kohen Gadol, you go to Rome. And how many stories are there in the Mishnah and the Talmud about rabbis going to Rome? All the time. And so it's just so important to emphasize that we were constantly nudging Rome to come in and settle our affairs, whether it's starting with Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, Aristobulus saying, come and win my brother, even by ways of war, and all the way to Kohanim Gdolim, all the way to the bloody battles between the family of Hashmonai over who's going to be the next king, constantly nudging the Romans. We're going to see it was very bad. And the Hashmonai family really is the one who does this. All right, so there's a fellow named Pompey the Great, and he comes to Jerusalem at the year 63 BCE. And he says, okay, guys, I'm here. And he kills 10,000 people and he puts Aristobulus in charge. And from then on, you really have Rome micromanaging Jerusalem at our request very often, meaning not that everyone asked them to come, but they were always asked to settle things. Once they're in charge, come please take my side. I'll say it on a side note, really a very side note. I know that sometimes there are issues that people try and lobby the American government about things happening in Israel, right? You don't like the Israeli policy about this or that, people go to the American government. I personally, even when there's a policy I strongly disagree with it's that the notion of going to another government and trying to get them to intervene internally, it has a very bad history. If there's something extraordinary that's needed, maybe, but in general, that's what happened in the last century of the Second Temple. King Herod gets in power, and it's interesting. You can see how he's portrayed. King Herod is eventually king. He's in all the succession battles. I'm not going to even get into the succession battles. He is so bloody that in Christianity, where they have more recordings of what happened in the Second Temple, he's portrayed as an absolute villain. There's a story in the Talmud about one of the Hashmonai kings killing every single rabbi except for one who was his brother-in-law. And there's no exaggeration there. There's an absolute bloodbath of these Hashmonai kings who are vying for power. And so in Christian sources, there's a lot more about it. But yeah, King Herod, who built the Beit HaMikdash, is an absolute villain. But to compensate for killing a lot of rabbis and for I guess not being very favored, he builds this temple. And first, the rabbis are concerned because they say he's going to destroy the original form, but he assures them that not. So if you think about how long this temple stood, less than 100 years, right? So it's destroyed, spoiler alert, by 70. So we're talking about what? We're talking about 89 years, beginning to end. So that's what you have here. King Herod, he builds this temple. Now, in the year 64 BCE, and here's where every year counts. Usually in Jewish history or in history in general, you approximate. Here it's literally every year between this year and the last year, 70, everything counts. There's a local schnook. I hate to use that term. He's like a little guy. You wouldn't think he's too important, but he's actually very much a cause of the events that changed humanity, I would say. Anyone ever hear this guy's name? Gasius Florus or Gesius Florus? Anybody hear the name? I guess like with American history, it all boils down to taxes, right? The Tea Party, that's when governments fall and countries rise. Gasius Florus is the guy in charge of administrating. He's the local governor of the area of Israel. And he decides to put extremely heavy taxes. And not only that, he goes and he walks into the temple and he takes all the gold from the basement. So this really enrages people. And this is when the Great Rebellion starts to take place. So it starts with this small guy. It's sort of like the ambassador in the time of the World War I. But here's a guy that, here, one second, just to make sure. Yes, exactly. I see your comments. Yes, it was built, it was done to impress the Romans, not the Jews. We're going to see a lot about that. But Gasius Florus is a random person. He's a governor. He's not too important, but he sparks the Great Rebellion. One thing leads to the other, but within 6 years, the temple is destroyed. So he says, you can listen to his quote and tell what kind of fellow he is. A champion of noble Nero's great empire, I have no place amongst these loathsome misers and squanderers. For on the streets of Caesarea are those who still owe me tribute, and I shall track them till the end of days. So basically, he's a guy that a bull in a china shop, and he says, I'm going to take as many taxes as I want, and I despise basically the people that I'm taxing, and he really causes the first rebellion. Now, once you have a rebellion, the Jews actually are extraordinarily successful. If you think about it, the Jews drive out the Romans, and they drive them out, and they succeed, which gets people very intoxicated, right? The idea that you can, you and your friends in Gamla or wherever might be able to do away with the Roman Empire, the great Roman Empire, is amazing. And so they put these coins out. Once it's successful, one says on it Shekel Yisrael, one says Yerushalayim HaKadosha. By the way, does anyone, do these look familiar to anyone, any of these coins? Does anyone feel like they've seen these coins before? No? Nobody? Robert, you ever see a coin like this? So if you look at the Israeli shekel, a lot of the Israeli imagery was done purposefully as sort of like a coming full circle. The Israeli shekel has these images on it. And the idea is that we're back. And it is amazing. There's a lot to be said about that. So this is Shekel Yisrael Yerushalayim HaKadosha. You can see the pomegranates, which are holy. You can see the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash, and that's what it says. This is when the rebellion is successful, and this is Shana Shtaim. It's not someone going to their program in Israel or a seminary. What is Shana Shtaim? It means anyone want to try what Shana Shtaim means on it when it says it? It's to boost morale. This is the second year of the Judean kingdom that is independent and free of the Romans. But little did they know that the Romans, unfortunately, are amassing troops all the way from Britain, literally from across the empire. The Romans are bringing forces that are going to soon really come to Jerusalem. But so far, the Jews have a sense that they're winning. This is before satellite pictures and everything. They don't realize how bad it's about to get. Shana Shtayim. All right. Again, Yerushalayim Hakdosha. It's even the rebels in the north realize that the center of this is Jerusalem. It's all about Jerusalem and it's all about the temple. Now, next we have a silver shekel from year one. You can really see the old Hebrew script and the temple from the temple vessels. Shekel Yisrael Shana Hey. I guess this was like from the whatever was left, but eventually there's nothing left. But Shana Hey must be like a year after the destruction. All right, this is 2016. Remember we did Derech Olei Regel, the way of the pilgrims who come all the way from the pool of Herod and they go all the way to Jerusalem. So in 2016, it says on it two things: Chirut Zion, liberty of Zion, and Shnat Shtayim Lamered Hagadol. And this is the second year of the Great Rebellion. It's important to note that there are two themes to the rebellion against the Romans. What are the two themes? If you're a Jew, why are you not gonna be okay with the Romans? What are two reasons you might resist the Romans? It's almost like there's two ideologies that are behind the rebellion. What are two reasons you might, Robert, what do you think? Two reasons you might rebel against the Romans?
Their idolatry.
Because I'm sorry?
Their idolatry.
Their idolatry. So one is the religious idea, and the other is the liberty, right? Liberty is always, it's just amazing, before anyone in Ireland or in Boston or wherever might have thought of liberty as such a novel idea, the Jews were doing it. But it's important to note also, it's easy to judge what the Jews did back then as suicidal, which it was. It was crazy if you think about it. To go and rebel against the empire that's occupying the ancient world is absolutely mad, absolute madness. But just to sort of put it into perspective, at the time, the Romans were really oppressing the Jews, taking people as slaves, really hurting the Jews. Now, it kind of escalated from one thing to the other. So the Jews didn't necessarily mean to rebel against the empire, but first it was the local guy. And once war breaks out, there's very little you can do to control it. But yeah, the idea of Chirut Zion is very central, and the idea of the religious motive. Here is something also found on that same street. You can see that in a lot of these things, we speak about the Shivat Aminim. In a lot of these coins and lamps that you'll find, you'll see those motives. A, the pomegranates, B, the grapes, and C, the palm trees, okay? And obviously the olive oil is also very big. So the Shivat Aminim is actually built into the culture. It's not just something that they heard about, it's built into the culture. Now, once we're on the topic of coins, I'm fast forwarding you about 60, 70 years. This is from Bar Kochva Legeulat Zion. So no longer are you fighting for liberty, you're fighting for redemption. You want to redeem Zion. And again, Shnat Arba Legeulat Zion. What's the difference between Geulah and Chirut? When you have your liberties in the year 67, you're fighting for Chirut, but when you basically lost, you are fighting for Geulah. You're fighting for Geulat Zion. And here's again, this is actually from Bar Kochva Lechirut Yerushalayim. By the way, look at the beauty, right? What do you see there on the left? Anyone? What do you see on the left coin?
The temple.
The temple, look at the details, look at the beauty. And this is done 60, 70 years after the destruction. You can see the lulav or something similar to that on the left, on the right. So there's a very strong religious motives. Alrighty, Shin Bet Lecherut Israel, second year for the liberty of Israel, and again you see the palm, you see the grapes. A lot of Shivat Aminim themes. Ouch! This hurts. This actually hurts. And I've seen, by the way, I've seen in museums this coin. What does it say on this coin? Famous coin. No matter what your outlook is on the rebellion, this hurts. It hurts to see this. What is this? This is not a Jewish coin. This is a Roman coin. Anyone ever see this coin before? So if you take a look on the right, it says Judea capta, which means, obviously Judea is captured. And you see the powerful Roman man over there, and you see the woman representing Judea crying under her palm tree. And you even see his weaponry over there. So it was a big deal. This war between us and them was not something small. On the one hand, it's embarrassing that we did something so suicidal. On the other hand, from a purely objective note, we did, almost bring down the Roman army. Like they did have to mobilize their soldiers from Britain. Like this was, the Jews definitely gave it a good fight, but the Romans brought their full force to it. All right, now that we're done with coins, this is an actual piece of rock, a huge piece of rock that is carved in right near where you go to the Kotel. On the right, you have Robinson's Arch, and you have different things that fell down. And this was carved into one of the very big rocks. I'm going to see if I can get you a better look. Can anyone make out? This is, by the way, a very large rock. This is not a small rock. This is a rock, probably I would say 4 or 5 feet we're talking. It's very hard to make out. There's different theories, but there's actually different theories about the last 2, 3 letters, but not about the beginning. So the beginning, and this is a stone from Temple Mount, is Lebeit HaTikiyah. This is the house of the Tikiyah. Now, why? So the common belief, this is a stone you can find in the Israel Museum, and its origin is still near the Robinson Arch, meaning you can find the part it was carved out of. Lebeit HaTikiyah means to the house of blowing the shofar, and a lot of scholars refer to the Mishnah that says that on Fridays, they would blow the shofar in Jerusalem in order to let people know that Shabbat is coming. To this day, part of the reason in Jerusalem, anyone ever been to Jerusalem where they have this really lovely music before Shabbat? Anyone ever been? Anyone ever hear the speakers in Jerusalem where they have, so if you go to Jerusalem about a half hour before Shabbat, you'll see or you'll hear this really loud music. What's the story? It used to be this huge siren, but then there were, between the Gulf War and the different air raids and the rockets coming in, that was too scary and people thought it might be confusing. So there's music, there's very loud music. Lebeit HaTikiyah, this is where they would blow the shofar to let people know that Shabbat was coming. All right, now we're gonna see how it might have looked. And you can, here's the completed version. So you have a Lebeit HaTikiyah and a Lamed Hey. So there's 2 theories. Either it's Lebeit HaTikiyah lehachriz, to announce, or Lebeit HaTikiyah lehavdil. Lehavdil meaning to separate between the holy and the mundane, bein kodesh lechol. So those are the 2 options: Lebeit HaTikiyah lehachriz or Lebeit HaTikiyah lehavdil. And if you want a theory of how this stone looked on the edge of Temple Mount, you can see this lovely Kohen. By the way, that's how the rock looks with that carving. So he can stand there. I don't know what difference it makes if he stands there or a foot behind, But that is where the fellow gets up and lets Jerusalem know that Shabbos is coming, Havdalah, you have to separate between the holy and the unholy. That's where this rock was, and then it was tumbled from the top of Temple Mount to the bottom under the Robinson's Arch. All right, here is something absolutely mind-boggling, and it has extraordinary significance. By the way, anyone here read Latin? Because not me, but do we have someone that reads Latin? Because this is a good old-fashioned. This is really from back in the day. Basically, here's the story of this rock. It's fascinating. First of all, we also have looted items that have been stolen from us that are taken to foreign museums, not just the Egyptians. So there's a lot of items from Egypt that are in the British Museum, and there are actually many items from Israel that are stolen and taken to Istanbul by Turkey from the days of the Ottoman Empire. There's a prohibition I spoke about that a Jew is not allowed to come onto Temple Mount unless he's pure. Well, if you're not Jewish, you cannot come up to the Temple Mount past a certain line if you're not Jewish at all. That is a very politically incorrect sign. That sign says on it in a different language, in Greek, it says, if you are not Jewish and you cross this line, you will be killed. Now, it makes you wonder, since Judea is ruled by such, Hellenized leaders, since there's such a subsidiary in many ways of Rome, how did anyone let that sign up? Anyone have thoughts, ideas? How can you have a country that's a branch of Rome that's completely controlled and to Rome's discretion, and it says on it, if you cross this line into our temple and you're not Jewish, you will be killed. Anyone thoughts on how that was possible? So the answer is Rome knew, and this comes back to partially to tell you how we really did a lot to bring, not we, the rebels and the Hashmonaim, the kings, brought this on ourselves. The Romans let it. They let full religious freedom. They said, you know what, guys? It's good for business. For you guys to have your own country, that's good for us. As long as people are happy, they pay their taxes, we're in control, that's fine. And so much so that Titus, when he comes and he's eventually destroying Jerusalem, he's so mad at the rebels. The Titus, I'm reading to you. Sorry, I went ahead. I'm reading for you from the book of Josephus. The book of Josephus, where Titus is talking, and he tells the rebels, guys, we didn't have to come here. People need to realize the destruction of Jerusalem was bad for business. Rome did not want Jerusalem destroyed. They, in general, avoided at all costs destroying a colony. Why? Because colonies pay taxes and colonies produce. And in general, you don't want people to think when your soldiers show up that they're about to destroy the country. And so they didn't, a lot of this was sort of a result of escalation. Titus Kasmod Vehirbal Daber Kashotel Anshe Yochanan. He speaks to the people of Yochanan of Gush Chalav, who's one of the worst rebels. Bekoroi Leim Lemor. He speaks to them and he says, Hoy nevalim to name. You I don't even want to translate. You impure, terrible people. Ha'im lo hekimu yadechem et hasorag hazeh misaviv lakodesh. Did you guys not build a wall surrounding the Kodesh? Ha'im lo emadetem basoreg et ha'amudim ha'eleh. Did you not put in the frame around the temple these pillars that say on them in both Greek and in our writing, and you said that not a single foreigner is going to cross this line. And here's the part that should absolutely boggle your mind. Did we not cooperate with you to kill and give the death penalty to anyone who violated this? Afimiya Ezrach Roma, even if he's a Roman citizen. Now, again, this is from Josephus, so you always have to take it with a grain of salt. But Titus is saying, look, guys, we gave you permission to have religious freedom and autonomy, so much so that if a Roman citizen, who's like the highest thing in the Roman Empire, broke the law and went into the Beit HaMikdash, we would execute him. So what else can you ask for? Meaning to say, we gave you full religious autonomy. There's really nothing you guys can complain about. And it's just, noteworthy that we have that. All right, now, if you take a look, this is a map of the old city of Jerusalem today. You can see the Kotel. You see there's the Kotel. Here's the Jewish quarter. There's the Karaite synagogue, which is ancient. But you have also two things that happened in 1967. In 1967, the government of Israel had a very big dilemma. Do we turn the entire, they had an opportunity. The old city of Jerusalem was in ruins in many ways, and they could have just turned the whole site into an archaeological dig this day. What they did is they used a window of time. They said, okay, for X amount of time, a year or two, we're going to dig it, and then we'll build above. And that's exactly what you have today. There's these several sites that are under buildings near Yeshivat HaKotel, Porat Yosef. They were dug, and then they built houses above them. So it was a very smart choice of the state of Israel to do the digging and then to build over it. So you have the burnt house, the Herodian section, and the Chorva synagogue, which is older. The Cardo is an ancient Greek style street. Some of you may have seen it. Anyone ever see the Cardo? I'm sure. Yeah, okay, good. So we're going to see some of those. So here is the burnt house. And what's most amazing about these houses is the wealth. The wealth is absolutely extraordinary. I've seen in my entire lifetime, I think, one person who had a mikveh in their house, a private mikveh, right? You have to be very wealthy for that. Well, in the old city of Jerusalem, you have people who have 3-4 mikvahs in their palatial house, prime real estate. It's not just the religious side of it. It's an extraordinary amount of wealth. There's, by the way, just a very interesting fact, which is sad. After the destruction of Jerusalem, the price of gold and silver and precious metals goes down across the Roman Empire. Right? People talk about inflation these days. The price of gold goes down because there is so much gold in Jerusalem, even after its destruction. There are people living in extraordinary wealth. Jerusalem's an international metropolitan, and so there are very, very wealthy people. Now, with it comes also obviously certain decadence, and you have a lot of that. But that's what happened. Actually, the biggest problem ended up coming from the zealots. But we'll see that. But basically, you have these houses that have 3-4 baths inside them. This is the museum. This is how a house then looked. And these are luxury houses of the wealthiest of the wealthy. I'm going to get to this picture later. But this is the Herodian quarter. This is the stairs to the mikveh. This is one of someone's house. This is not a carpet. To have something like this in your house, you have to be wealthy. A mosaic, and again, a private staircase to a mikveh in their house. Look at this. This is not just the mikveh. There's the bathing side of this. Yeah, so they have these people who live in extraordinary wealth. Now, by the way, why am I using the mikvahs and baths as a symbol of the wealth of the time? Anyone want to speculate? Anybody? Why would a mikveh or a bath be like the Lamborghini of today?
Water.
Ah, very good. If you can afford to have 3 baths, where people in other parts of the city may not have water when they're coming to visit Jerusalem, right? We have all the stories about Choni HaMe'agel. Then you must be A, very wealthy, B, very inconsiderate, right? You have, you're gonna, it's like, what's that quote from Marie Antoinette? Let them eat cake. Yeah. If the people don't have water to drink, I'm gonna use my 3 baths to bathe. And these, of course, who are the wealthy people in the city? Very often the Kohanim. The Kohanim are often A, tzedukim, B, very alienating, very, I hate to say it, but greedy. And they are, there's a lot of it in Christianity, how you have these people who are just hoarding cash and at the expense of others. But a lot of the Kohanim are not exactly symbols of service. So that is what's going on. It's called the Herodian quarter. You can find it to this day in Jerusalem, as if time has not passed by. What in this picture is the greatest example of wealth? How do you know someone is rich if this is what is in their house and what they find to this day in their house? Anybody see any
Glassware?
Yes, if you have glass in those days, wow, that's like a next level. So there's glassware, which is in the Roman Empire, very, very shtati and posh. Now, on the bottom right of this picture, there's two things in this picture. On the bottom right, do you see anything funny in the bottom right? Anyone notice something strange about those utensils? Something curious?
The divided dish?
The divided dish, yeah, that looks like me packing lunch or something, right? Or like what you would get on the airplane. But these utensils are actually made from stone. Why stone? Because in Jewish law, stone cannot become impure. So if you have metal, that's the worst. It becomes absolutely very impure if someone's dying or something. But then you have, clay. But if you have something that's literally a stone, it does not become tameh. So if you have houses of Kohanim, they will be hoarding these stone utensils. On the left, you can see a burnt wall. Some of the walls are with the burns to this day. This is someone's living room. Part of it is a replica. You can see the menorah. By the way, I don't want to get into a whole controversy, but there's the whole thing with the Rambam, the Chabad menorah, which is straight branches, the other menorah. It's pretty clear from most archaeological finds that the menorah was rounded and not like the Chabad menorahs. But yeah, this is the mizbech, the menorah. This is the decorations. Look at the extraordinary wealth, the fanciness. Jerusalem is indeed a very, very prosperous city. Then you have a lot of mikvahs, a lot. Some of them are being found to this day. I'll show you soon something very funny. This young girl in Beit HaKerem wanted to renovate her living room. What happened? This is, 3 years ago. What happened to her in Beit HaKerem? Anyone notice? I hope this doesn't happen to anybody in their living room. This is a recent picture. She found a mikvah from the second temple under her house. So this family in Beit HaKerem, this is not long ago. I'll show you a few more pictures of this situation. But basically, there's mikvahs all over. She wants to do something in her living room. They dig. I don't know why nobody found it, over the past 2,000 years. But poor girl, she just wanted some renovations in her house. And there's the second temple mikvahs in her house, quite spacious. Now, here are the steps. Now, the steps are very wide. I didn't get a different picture, which would have been better. But in many of these mikvahs, there's a divider down the middle. Anyone know why there's a divider down the middle of the steps in the second temple mikvahs?
You go in, come in, come out.
Yeah. You don't want, heaven forbid, you don't want to touch someone who's not pure, right? There's a lot, whether it's the cults that went and hung out in the Dead Sea area, or even if you're a regular rabbinic Jew, purity is not just a simple thing. Now you're careful when you wash your hands for bread, don't touch someone else's hand, right? Worst case scenario, if you touch someone else's hand, you'll wash again. Here, it's like, you have to go to the mikvah and you're serving in the temple. So there's usually actually a divider in the stairs. You go down one side, you go up the other, and you make sure that you don't touch anyone or anything from, and there's a lot of mishnahs about this. make sure that you do not touch someone who's not pure. Some of the cults, the non-rabbinic cults, the breakaway cults, they really went crazy with this. They were like, they would avoid touching someone who wasn't as pure as them, like the plague. Now, what's amazing about this discovery? This is a very recent discovery. What's amazing about this discovery?
My name is Tyler. I'm product manager here at the Sorry.
What's anyone have something that's really extraordinary here?
This is a project we've had.
One second. One second. Anybody? Anyone? I think someone needs to be on mute. 1 second.
There's water there, not just the ruins of the mikveh.
Very good. Yes. There's water there, and that's one of the truly amazing things about this this finding, that we're finding, and that's the amazing thing about Jerusalem, and one of the secrets to its desirability in the ancient times, and well, today it has many other things going for it, but is the fact that it's on a hill and it has water coming in. To this day, you can find these mikvahs that are filling up on their own. So that's just absolutely amazing. There's water coming in to this day, and when they're digging up new mikvahs, there's new water coming in. Here's another mikvah that they find, and it's from that period of time. Now, these are two pictures that convey a frozen moment in that time. What are these two pictures that capture the tragedy of the time?
It's a skeleton.
One is the hand of a young lady that is a skeleton, and the other is a burnt spear. So the destruction, the chaos, the fire, frozen time for 2,000 years until archaeologists found, one, this poor girl who was murdered while she was there, and two, this burnt spear of a Roman soldier capturing the chaos and destruction once the Romans took the city. There's a lot of these to be found inside Jerusalem. I just showed you a picture earlier. I'm sorry, before I show you this, what's this? This is actually one of the most advanced pieces of weaponry in the ancient world.
A catapult.
And what do you do with it?
You put those bowls on it and you fling them.
And what are they? What are those balls made out of? They're made out of
I don't know, iron, something.
26 kilograms of stone. And when it goes at that speed, at that height, with that force, it can obviously devastate walls and roofs and people. And there are many of these found in Jerusalem. I'll show you a funny, and by the way, obviously one of the reasons that the Romans are able to do so much with their powerful machine of war is the amount of slaves that they have, right? So, there's just an extraordinary amount of slaves that are doing all the work for them and schlepping these very heavy cannonballs that are taken. If you take a look at the sword, we're going to see in a few moments that there's actually one of the Roman soldiers left his sword behind, and one of these swords is found in Jerusalem. So this is something that happened in 2016. If you know your Jerusalem geography, it is Migrash HaRusim, where you have a museum and Israel's Jerusalem's prison place, one of their holding places. This is the site, 2016. So in the past 6 years, they have this site that is the launching ground from where the Romans launched all these bullets at Jerusalem. So there's a lot of bullets, and this is the launching site where they're sending it from. Again, this is a recent discovery, and this is where the Romans are shooting from. And now soon I'm going to show you a funny story, as sad as this is. What do you think is happening in this picture? This is a very recent story. This is a recent story from the past 2 years. What do you think is happening on the right? This is a
Somebody
picture.
found a cannonball.
So it's actually someone's returning a stolen cannonball. What happened was, for some reason, during COVID-19, during the pandemic, someone thought that the end of the world is coming, and he felt very guilty about something he stole. And he went to it was sitting in his house. He was feeling guilty. Maybe all those lockdown days gave him time to think about his actions. And he contacted a friend of his who was, I guess it's a Free Samaritan role or something, where his friend posted on social media and said, I know someone who is not willing to disclose who he is, but he stole one of these cannonballs, and he gave it back. So they let him off scot-free. I guess no police investigation. But it's just to show you how common some of these are. Obviously, there's not thousands of them rolling around the streets of Jerusalem, but there's a lot. That's the funny side. The sad side is just, you know, that the amount of destruction that Rome harnessed against Jerusalem is truly, truly astonishing, and partially a symbol to how much resistance they were dealt. So there's these, you can see there's different sizes. Some of them are really large. In one site, they found, in one of these tunnels, they found two items. On the right is a sword of a Roman soldier. On the left, obviously a menorah for some reason. I don't know if it's the guy got lazy or it was under duress, but it only has four, it has five branches of the menorah. All right. This is probably my favorite finding in Jerusalem. This is not from the time of the destruction. It's more from like the year 100, even after. It's after Bar Kokhba. It's probably from the year 200. You can see the letters are much more square. This is right under the Robinson Arch. And in a time where it was forbidden for Jews to be in Jerusalem, someone snuck in. I don't know if he did it on a ladder or rappelling. And he carved into the wall of Jerusalem a pasuk that we read after Tisha B'Av, Ureitem v'sas libchem ve'atzmotechem kadeshet ifrachna. And you will see, and your eyes shall rejoice, and your bones are going to flourish like grass. It's a beacon of hope in the time of extraordinary despair. He goes and he carves this pasuk of the Nechama from Yeshaya on the walls under the Robinson Arch. That is it. I tried to keep the findings, to convey the findings, to convey the story, the just basic historical timeline, as well as to keep it relevant in terms of trying to exhibit a lot of the findings that are more recent and more interesting. If anyone has questions, we're gonna take questions and